It's been a couple of years since the social justice protests at Mizzou University, and their enrollment is still down. They've even spent an exorbitant amount of money trying to solve their PR issue, but it might not be working because there's still stories about parents who ask about the protests while they're on tour with their kids to determine whether or not they want to go to the school. And this is not unique to Mizzou. It seems like whenever there's a large social justice protest or some kind of scandal, a university will see a decline in enrollment. It makes sense. Why would someone want to go to a school that's got problems? We're now hearing that Wilfrid Laurier University in Ontario is seeing a very large decline in enrollment, and this might have to do with the Lindsay Shepherd incident. So if it is true that social justice is causing massive damage to these universities, why, and what will the result be at the end of all of this? Before we get started, please head over to patreon.com/TimCast to become a patron. Every video I have made this month has been demonetized, so I really do rely on all of you to contribute through Patreon to help me keep producing this content. So please, if you want to see me keep doing this work, I would really appreciate your support. Our first story from Fox News. University of Missouri spent $1.3 million on PR firm to fix negative image after protests. 2.5 years after the University of Missouri at Columbia's race-based protest garnered negative national attention, especially after former communications professor Melissa Click went viral for threatening a student journalist, freshman enrollment is still down, costing the university millions. And while Click may have been fired and kicked off of campus for good, Mizzou can't shake the negative image that contributed to the commonly used derogatory terms such as safe space and snowflakes. So the public university spent $1.3 million on a public relations firm to repair its negative image amid layoffs of 350 employees, according to a report from the Chronicle of Higher Education. We were caught off guard, Alexander Cartwright, the chancellor of the Columbia campus who started last year, told the Chronicle, adding that in a time of rampant misinformation that molds people's viewpoints, rebuilding trust in any institution is difficult. Basically, after this protest, the university is claiming it's misinformation and negative press that is damaging its reputation and causing its enrollment decline. In the wake of the protests, Mizzou created a council on race relations and hired more black faculty members. Some alumni were outraged at the administration's response to bad behavior from the students, while others felt the university took extreme measures and felt the president and chancellor did not have to resign. Let's think about it this way. What parent is going to encourage their child to go to a university if disruption is possible and has happened in the past? And this happens at a lot of colleges. I interviewed students at Berkeley who talked about how they were frustrated with all of the activism shutting down their classes. They just wanted to get an education. Parents want their kids to go to college so they can get careers, so they can be successful and live comfortably. But if you're hearing about a university where students are disrupting the school and the faculty and staff are capitulating to the demands of students, what parent is going to think their child is going to get a good education at an institution like this? And now we have another story from the College Fix. Canada's Mizzou. Enrollment plunging at university that investigated gender-neutral pronoun debate. Wilfrid Laurier University may have thought that its public relations problem ended in December when its president admitted it should never have investigated a grad student's decision to show a gender-neutral pronoun debate in class. But the Canadian university's problems are just beginning, as evidenced by new enrollment figures across Ontario institutions. Laurier finance professor William McNally pointed out the university's admissions confirmations as of June 7th have declined 15.2% from a year ago, while first place choices are down 12.5%, both the worst in the province. David Haskell, the Laurier journalism professor who emerged early as grad student Lindsay Shepherd's biggest faculty defender, jeered his institution while it's down. At WLU, we practice hardline leftist indoctrination. Seems to have failed as a marketing strategy. He compared the school to America's Evergreen State College, whose president predicted it would suffer an 18.5% enrollment drop this fall, on top of the 5% drop it suffered at the start of the 2017-2018 academic year. The school became a national punchline a year ago after students and faculty ganged up on husband and wife professors Brett Weinstein and Heather Hying for publicly disagreeing with its anti-white day of absence. Laurier's plummeting enrollment also starts it down the path suffered by the University of Missouri, which has lost a third of freshmen in the past 2 years, even after a bump coming this fall. made infamous by a professor who asked for some muscle to remove a journalist who was covering the fall 2015 racial protests. Mizzou had to shutter several dorms a year ago and laid off 30 recently to help plug a $49 million hole. Is any of this surprising? I think the answer is no. Evergreen is going to lose nearly 20% of its enrollment numbers because protesters were allowed to take over the school. Why would someone want to go to school there? I don't get it. And again, back to the point about parents. Any good parent is going to say, don't go there. You want to get a good job, go somewhere where you'll actually succeed. But it gets kind of weird now because Laurier is claiming this was all intentional, that they intentionally wanted to lose students, believe it or not. From the record, enrollment decline at Laurier, intentional. The number of new students who will start at Wilfrid Laurier University this fall is down by 15%, but officials say the decline was intentional. We've landed exactly where we wanted to be, said Jennifer Casey, Assistant Vice President of Enrollment Services and Registrar at the university. It's still an exceptional growth pattern that Laurier is in. Even with the decline in its undergraduate enrollment this fall, the Waterloo campus has a 15% growth rate over the last 4 years, Casey said. That's thanks to 3 years of growth. Laurier, along with other universities in the province, negotiates enrollment targets with the government and needs to stay within a certain limit. Casey said the drop could be shocking for those without the background information, and they could assume it's related to the negative spotlight cast on the Waterloo campus due to the controversy over graduate student Lindsay Shepard, who is now suing the university, 2 professors, and a former employee of its diversity and equity office. So now we're playing the PR game. And it's possible things aren't really that bad at Wilfrid Laurier, and the people who are fluffing up this narrative just want to drive home the point that social justice is damaging colleges. That's possible too. However, they're comparing their numbers over a 4-year period, and that seems kind of weird. You really should compare your numbers from year to year. So is Wilfrid Laurier doing better this year than it did last year? No, it's doing a lot worse. But by extending that number, saying, well, over the past 4 years, we're still up. But that doesn't really make sense because you are now trending in the decline. So something happened and you're not doing as well as you should. And if we really want to talk about some arbitrary period of years, why don't you go back 50 years and talk about how great your enrollment is doing? It doesn't make sense. Year over year does make sense. Now, as much as it really does sound like social justice is causing damage to these universities, and that's entirely possible because we've seen the pattern. Evergreen, Mizzou, and now Wilfrid Laurier seeing a decline, it's possible that students don't want to go to these schools, and I think it is very likely. However, there is a decline in enrollments across the board, so it might not be just that social justice activists are causing problems, and in fact, it might be entirely possible that social justice has nothing to do with it at all. From Inside Higher Ed back in December, enrollment slide continues at slower rate. College enrollments in the U.S. declined for a 6th straight year, although at a slower rate, while the bachelor's degree got more popular. A more recent story from NPR. Why is undergraduate college enrollment declining? Undergrad enrollment in the U.S. is down for the 6th straight year. Women enrolling in higher education saved colleges in the 1980s, so who can save colleges today? University of Akron anticipates enrollment declines, budget cuts. Western Illinois University is looking to stop its enrollment decline, and this is from just a couple days ago. And this story from Campus Technology just the other day, turning around an enrollment decline. When Mesa Community College needed to crank up enrollment retention, it turned to an outside company for help. The result was a striking 9 times return on investment. Now, I want to be fair about this. We are seeing a decline across the board from all universities. So why then do I think that social justice is causing more damage to certain universities and not just part of the national trend? Well, the national trend is only about 1%. From the Inside Higher Ed story, it says the 1% decline this fall was due to undergraduate enrollments, which fell by nearly 224,000 students, or 1.4%. Yet Wilfrid Laurier is down 15%, and the projections for Evergreen, 18%. So that is substantially more than the 1% national average, and yes, I understand Wilfrid Laurier is in Canada, so I think it's just common sense. Nobody wants to waste time with activists pulling fire alarms, shutting down speeches, and jeopardizing their future. So you've got students who are going to avoid it and parents who are going to tell their kids to avoid it. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think the decline really is due to social justice, or maybe it's just a coincidence? I mean, there is a national decline, albeit much smaller of a national decline than what we're seeing at these universities. So again, comment below, we'll keep the conversation going. Stay tuned, new videos every day at 4 p.m. You can follow me on Twitter at Timcast. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.